why heads together and why mental health?
It was your idea, I think.
It was your idea.
It's a common thread, wasn't it? Mental health sort of seemed to run between all the different areas that we were working in. So whether it's homelessness and the military with yourself and addiction with me and bereavement, there's a sort of underlying thread, wasn't there, of mental health. And this idea that I suppose all of us coming together to find a common theme and to show people how to have those, what we're calling sort of simple conversations and starting those conversations, which is often the hardest bit, really.
As you said, it's like almost like a form of medicine.
Yeah. But as a young mother actually said that to me at the Anna Forey Centre, she said actually just talking to somebody, having those conversations is like medicine for her.
Yeah.
And that is the point, is that actually it's okay to have that conversation, even if it is uncomfortable or awkward, but it's just starting it.
But the pressures on children nowadays, I think, are more than they ever were for us as well. I think each generation can say that. You've got so many things to worry about now, whether you're struggling for exams, whether you're struggling with home life, whether you're struggling with friends. Then you have the social media angle. You can understand why, that coupled with the fact that you don't get out of the house because you're staring at a screen the whole time, there's got to be a lot of issues that are going to build from that if you're not careful.
And it's always sold as though everybody else's life is perfect.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And therefore you think everyone else's life is perfect, there must be something wrong with me. If you can have a family environment where you can talk openly about your issues, that makes for a better family, better preparation, probably working better at a job, doing better at school, so it just goes on and on and on.
Because you often speak, don't you, about the emotional changes that sort of even you've gone through. And I think a lot of parents hopefully can, I suppose, identify with that, in that, having a child, particularly your first child, is such a sort of life-changing moment. Nothing can really prepare you for that. Remember the first few days with little George, you have no idea really what you're doing, no matter how many books you read, nothing can prepare you for it.
But there's no rule book, there's no training that teaches you how to do it. You just have to learn from previous generations and hope that you can translate it into what you want to do.
You remember up in Anglesey, so we'd had a couple of weeks of sort of family support, and then you were keen to get back to your work, and I was like, no, I'll come with you, of course, yeah. So we scooted off back to Anglesey with George. Those first few weeks, were...
Steep learning curve.
A steep learning curve, massively.
When you have children, it really does put your own emotions and your own life into perspective, and it's been very, very interesting understanding, why I get so upset about some things or why some things affect me. I thought I was quite, fairly sort of straight down the line, but I'm actually quite, I feel quite a lot more than I used to.
Do you feel that particularly with the work with the air ambulance?
Yeah, I feel like I take on a lot of the family cases with me, take them home, which I find quite hard. And luckily we've got a good support network at work, and just talking about it amongst all of us and being able to, understand the process and hear, good news and bad news, but follow some of these cases through to the end is quite important.
And it's not just the individual, is it? It has such an effect.
Such an effect.
On the rest of the family?
Precisely. Family, friends, everyone that cares about you. So you've got that one individual in the middle. And then no one really, especially with the veterans piece as well, all the focus always seems to be on the individual with the injuries.
Exactly.
If it's physical injuries, then it's supposedly easier because you can see those injuries, where if it's hidden wounds, then no one can see that, but still that person is the focus. But the effect that has on them, their family and their friends is huge because people care about you.
Yeah.
But that's part of the healing process, and it's part of sharing your problems to halve them and to make them better with someone you trust and someone you know is going to help you.
Yeah. Both of us have always been open to each other, saying, we've never really talked about it. We've never really talked about losing a mum at such a young age. And when you speak to other people's families and little kids and stuff, you think, wow, I don't want them to have to go through the same thing. So you want to, with a little bit of experience, you want to help as much as you can and try and empower them to have that conversation and to be brave enough for themselves to talk about it at a young age rather than bottling it up for far too long.
Considering everything that you boys obviously sadly went through and the trauma that you experienced, I do, particularly with the work within early intervention and things like that I've been doing in the early years, I do think it's incredible how strong and how you've been able to cope, really. And I put that down to your really early years, childhood experience. But also the relationship that you've got. You're amazingly close. Yeah. And yes, you're not... No, but it's and some families sadly aren't as lucky as you guys have been, and being able to share things.
But we have been brought closer because of the circumstances as well. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You are, uniquely bonded because of what we've been through.
Yeah.
But even Harry and I, over the years, have not talked enough about our mother. We've
never enough.
Has doing this campaign sort of made you realise that?
Yeah, I think so. I always thought to myself, you know, what's the point in bringing up the past? What's the point in bringing up something that's only going to make you sad? It ain't going to change it. It ain't going to bring her back. And when you start thinking like that, it can be really damaging. And you always said to me, you said, you know, you've got to sit down and think about those memories. But for me, it was like, don't want to think about it.
Yeah. But I think what must happen with us and must happen with others as well is that you have to prioritise your mental health. Yeah. You have to say to yourself at some point, because it's very easy to run away from it, to walk away from it and avoid it the whole time. Someone has to take the lead and has to be brave enough to force that conversation.
This coming Sunday, the London Marathon is to some people a year in the making. I mean, this is their opportunity to put closure on an issue. This is their opportunity to be part of something amazing, and it's just really exciting for all of us to be part of it. I think 30-odd thousand people coming together. 300 and now 700 runners for specifically Heads Together. Everybody in the marathon being given a headband. Yeah. People running for just all sorts of different reasons. But as you guys have clearly pointed out over and over again, you could draw 150 charities that everybody's running for around in a circle, and in the middle will be mental health. It's the one thing that binds everything together.
Yeah. And so many of the runners that we've met have been so energised, haven't they, by others having sort of these conversations around them, but also feeling like they're part of this change and this sort of progression towards sort of, I suppose, a more open society, really.
Mental health marathon.
It's so lovely to have a chat with you, and I know how passionate you are about mental health, and you've gone on your own journey, haven't you, around sort of discovering
what it is.
Exactly, and how we can support not only ourselves but each other as well.
Well, that's it. I kind of have got into this world in a way that no one really should do, and I wish I wasn't associated with the word suicide. And unfortunately, that word will follow me around for a long time. The thing that happened to me in losing my best mate to suicide and losing someone that you're with every single day, I felt like what someone had told me a suicidal person looked like. Yeah. Like what someone that was suffering looked like.
Your sort of preconceived sort of ideas around that.
It was as if someone handed me a paper and said, by the way, everything you thought is a lie. Yeah. And you need to go and tell people that. And you had this overwhelming sense of like, oh my God, like we need to talk about it. Yeah. And what I found was I ended up not kind of talking to people about suicide and not talking to people about, oh, this is how you make your mental health better. I started talking to people about friendship. Yeah. And genuinely, that's the thing that will save lives. This is what always fascinates me. Boys and guys especially, we're so quick to tell one another, oh, you should be doing this in the gym. But when it comes to therapy or having certain chats, everyone shies away from it.
Exactly. So everyone cares about you and takes a lot of time over their physical health.
I
find it much harder to not only talk about their mental health, but actually understand ways in which we can also look after it.
100%.
But I loved your documentary, Our Silent Emergency, and the conversations that you had with lots of the individuals there. And the fact that relationships comes out so strongly through that is really powerful. And do you feel you learnt things in the documentary you made and the journey you've gone on? Do you feel your views around mental health and suicide have changed?
It's made me realise that, OK, if we really want to make a difference here, we're going to have to go younger. That's why I think the work that you're doing is fantastic, because really that's who we need to be targeting.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for all being here. Through our particular work with young people, whether through emergency response, homeless charities, and work with veterans, we have seen time and time again that unresolved mental health problems lie at the heart of some of our greatest social challenges.
Too often, people feel afraid to admit that they are struggling with their mental health. This fear of judgment stops people from getting the help that they need, which can destroy families and end lives. Heads Together wants to help everybody feel much more confident with their everyday mental health, and to have the practical tools to support family and friends.
The Heads Together campaign wants to involve all of you. We're already working with our partner charities and thousands of people to change the way that we think about mental health. We do not want prejudice and fear to stand in the way of people getting the help that they need. As the year progresses, the three of us, working with all of you in this room and others who will join us along the way, want to come up with practical ways of providing everyone who needs help with the right support and care. We want to build on the great work that others are already doing, but make it even more ambitious. By putting our heads together, we can all make a big difference.
But first, Heads Together wants to get people talking. The more we talk about mental health, the more normal the topic becomes, and the more we feel able to open up and seek support. By asking for help, by telling a friend we have a problem, by asking someone else how they feel, we're having even a conversation. We take the first step to feeling better about ourselves, and the first step to being able to cope better with the ups and downs of life. This is relevant to everyone, so let's all get our heads together and let's change the conversation, from one of silence and shame to one of optimism and support. Thank you for joining us at the start of this exciting journey, and I'll now hand back to Ian.
Thank you, and hello everyone. And thank you for all those who I've met this morning, children and staff alike. Over the last 2 years, William, Harry and I have been honoured to take part in the national conversation on mental health through our Heads Together campaign. We know that mental health is an issue for us all, children and parents, young and old, men and women, of all backgrounds and of all circumstances. What we've seen firsthand is that the simple act of having a conversation about mental health, that initial breaking of the silence, can make a real difference. But as you here today know, starting a conversation is just that. It's a start. This is particularly true of the conversations that take place in our schools and with our children. I see time and time again that there's so much to be gained from talking of mental health and taking the mental health of our children as seriously as we do their physical health. When we intervene early in life, we help avoid problems that are much more challenging to address in adulthood. My own commitment is to the youngest and most vulnerable in their early years, babies, toddlers, and school children, and to support all those who care for them. The role of teachers here is absolutely vital. You see our children as they grow, learn and play, as they build their social skills that will make a difference to their futures. You are uniquely placed to help children speak out about their mental and emotional challenges and direct parents and carers to the right support. I'm all too aware, however, of how much we ask teachers to take on. Teachers want to help, but don't have the time to go hunting for the best information and advice out there. You need resources you can trust, and you need to have easy access to them at all times. That is what this pilot is all about. Led by the Royal Foundation, with close collaboration from our Heads Together partners, this new online resource will transform schools' access to high-quality information and guide teachers and school leaders towards the best support out there. The ambition is to roll this website out this year, so it's available to every teacher in every primary school in the UK. The ultimate goal is that all teachers in the country should know where to turn to for expert resources to support the emotional well-being and mental health of the children in their care. I would ask each of you here today to work with the Foundation to develop this new essential resource. Please let us know what works, what doesn't, and what else you'd like to see. This project has been a collaboration from day one, and it will only succeed if we continue to work together. And with that in mind, it's so exciting to see the Department of Education represented by the Minister here today taking such a close interest. And finally, I'd like to say a huge thank you to you all. We would not be here today without the help of our Heads Together partners, including the Anna Freud Centre, Place to Be and Young Minds. I'm grateful too to the Centre of Mental Health, the National Association of Head Teachers, and the 50 schools taking part in this pilot. I'm so excited to see where this work will take us in the future. Thank you.
Nature is vital to us all. A thriving natural world regulates our climate, nurtures our physical and mental health, and helps feed our families. But for too long, we've neglected our wild spaces, and now we're facing a number of tipping points. If we don't act now, we will permanently destabilise our planet, and we will rob our children of the future they deserve. Our Earthshot prize finalists show us, however, that we can, by 2030, see the natural world growing, not shrinking, for the first time in centuries. I am delighted to announce that the first ever Earthshot prize to protect and restore nature is awarded to the Republic of Costa Rica.
Good afternoon, everyone. William and I are absolutely delighted to be with you here in Birmingham on World Mental Health Day for our Royal Foundation Youth Forum. Mental health is something we both care deeply about. And back in 2016, we launched Heads Together, a campaign supported by so many wonderful partners that help break the stigma around mental health and encourage more people to have everyday conversations about it. Alongside the efforts of many others, we have seen real change. Today, more people feel empowered to talk about their mental health than ever before. This is a major step forward. William and I continue to be inspired to see young people, like you all here today, leading this charge, being particularly brave in having some of those conversations yourselves. As a generation, you value and talk more about your mental health than any before you, something we truly admire and applaud. It is important, however, to remind ourselves of the big picture as we meet here today. What are we trying to improve by focusing our efforts on mental health? Ultimately, we are working to build a happier, healthier world. We want to shape fairer, safer, kinder, more equal societies, societies that seek the common good and a better future together. For just as we need to restore, protect and invest in our planet, so we must also restore, protect and invest in our communities, relationships and people living on it. And we believe that starts with you, our young people. But it also means all of us, because when you think about it, we can each shape the world in which we live. So, we know, like you, that simply talking about mental health is just not enough. Because although many more conversations are now taking place, it is now vital we spend more time focusing on how we talk about mental health, and crucially, what we're going to do to build positive, preventative solutions to one of today's toughest challenges. Positive mental health is shaped by our ability to understand and manage ourselves as individuals, and to connect with others through our relationships, friendships, families and communities. We are living in a world, however, that is changing so fast, where social media and concerns about the threat of conflict, pandemics, climate change or the cost of living can impact our emotional well-being and future hopes dramatically. On top of this, as young people, this can also be a time in your lives when you perhaps feel the vulnerability of growing independence and self-consciousness. But by gaining a deeper insight into ourselves, we'll be better equipped to handle the external challenges we all encounter. Today we heard the science and the research that backs this up, and how crucial it is that we develop the skills needed to navigate everything we'll face in the future. William and I believe we need to do all we can as a society to help young people develop the emotional and social life skills they need for good mental health and to thrive in the world around them. Both learning about the world and learning about how to be happy and thrive within it should go hand in hand. So, if we talk about mental health with this in mind, it need not have so many negative connotations. We can choose to see our emotional worlds and mental well-being in a different light. We can normalise it and recognise it as something we all have and require as human beings. This will be our key focus for us both as we build on Heads Together. Thank you so much for all of you for joining us today. Together, let's build a brighter, more resilient future.
The birth of a child is one of life's greatest gifts, but it can also be one of the most challenging times for many families, and one that should not be faced alone. This Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week is about the power and importance of connection. The past couple of years have reminded us just how much we need each other and how vital our relationships are to our long-term health and happiness. This starts in the very earliest years of our lives, when we need close and continuous care from the people around us to nurture our development and ensure that we get the right start in life. But we all know that pregnancy, childbirth, and the first months and years of a child's life can be hugely demanding. Parents often feel lonely and overwhelmed by these early years. Around 20% of women in the UK are reported to experience perinatal mental illness. Sadly, we also know that many more are suffering in silence. No one is immune to experiencing anxiety and depression during this time. It is crucial, therefore, that all those who might be struggling are given the right support at the right time, so that they're able to share these feelings without fear of judgment and can access the information, care and support they so desperately need to recover. Over the last decade, charities and organisations working in this space have come together to transform attitudes, raise awareness and ensure that services are available to parents and babies at this important time in their lives. Much of this vital work has been led by the Maternal Mental Health Alliance, a fantastic organisation of which I'm extremely proud to become patron of today. There is plenty more to be done, and it's down to each and every one of us to support parents and carers and all those who are raising children today. Because by ensuring that the next generation of children can thrive, we can help to build a stronger, healthier, and more nurturing society which benefits us all.